Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Tell Me Everything Fraud Girl Fridays. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. I have Mike on with us with Birdseye Security Solutions, and super excited for this. If you have not caught kind of what the whole month is about, it's about educating shippers. I know a lot of us in the industry are like, why didn't the shipper check this or that? And I think Birdseye has a great way of kind of making that process easier for them, as well as kind of having some ROI on other avenues as well, like yard management and things like that. So really interesting stuff. I have honestly never seen anything like it. I met them at the Cargo Theft Summit in California that was done by Travelers and CargoNet. And interesting, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, you have to come on my podcast and talk about this. It's so cool. But very interesting. I learned a lot just about other things I didn't even know that they did. So having that full visibility and kind of like the digital guard shack as I'm throwing everything around, digital guard shack is kind of what I like to call it. But it's a great way to kind of get your freight safe in a more secure way even than having a human do it. So really cool technology there. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in it. Well, thanks so much for coming on with me on Frog Girl Friday. Mike, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited for this one. I work a lot with Sam. I met you guys at what was it? The Travelers Cargo Theft Summit there in California. And ever since then, I was like, oh my God, we got to have you on the podcast and connect and all that stuff. So happy you're here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Definitely. So real fast, before we kind of jump into everything, will you do me a favor and introduce yourself and kind of talk about where you're working at now, and then we'll get into all the things.
That sounds good. My name is Mike Grabovica. I'm the founder and CEO of Birdseye Security Solutions. And what we do is we bridge the gap between the digital and the physical world. So we neutralize fraud before it leaves the yard, and we provide real-time visibility, and it's an immediate defense against detecting fraudulent pickups and diversions. So, there's a 1,500% increase in what is termed strategic theft since 2021, which includes fraudulent pickups and related digital fraud, identity fraud, and things like that. So our product is an essential tool that helps people not get manipulated when it comes to fraudulent pickups. And we provide a lot of visibility at the gate and integrate with all the systems and reduce cost along the way as well, which is also a important topic these days.
Right. Rolf, what did you do before this? Like, how did you come to get into this type of,
Yeah, so much like your nickname Fraud Girl, you just ended up where you end up.
Gotcha.
So I always liked technology since I was a little kid. I had a retail, I was a franchisee of 5 retail outfits selling computers, cameras, internet, software, servers, chips, just geeky tech stuff. And we would normally just give it to our customers and they would solve their own problems with it. And then that kind of evolved into like, well, why just sell it to you? Why not operate it for you and collect big data that you can use to make better informed business decisions? So kind of end-to-end design, implementation, operation, and then also collecting, again, information that can be useful for insurance companies, for third parties, for operations, for safety. So just being more involved with the business instead of just saying, here's a product, figure it out.
Yeah, that's key. So this month I'm focusing on shipper education, and kind of, I think a lot of times brokers and carriers will be like, hey, you were the one that loaded the truck and this and that. There's so much finger pointing back and forth when it comes to cargo theft. And I think having shippers kind of be a little bit more educated on what exactly is going on, because I think a lot of times they just see kind of in their little realm and not the whole big picture of things, kind of like, brokers do. So anyways, the reason why I wanted to bring you guys on was, I'm doing that this month. And so whenever I saw your guys' stuff, it's almost like a digital guard shack. Like it's where you guys set up the cameras kind of everywhere, and then it takes pictures of everything. It scans your CDL. Am I right on that?
Yes, correct. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's key to have it where whenever the driver's pulling up, there's a sense of not only just checking in on a sheet of paper, because that's what so many people do, right? And they can write whatever they want to. Nobody really checks anything. Having that checks and balances in there, and hey, you can't even pass go until you are matching up everything.
That's right. Exactly. A skilled fraudster can create really convincing but fake digital carrier profile,
Hmm.
and they can circumvent and find its way all the way to your gate. So what we do is we visually verify that everything reconciles. So you'll have a conversation with the driver. You can even play some psychological tricks on them if you get suspicious of the driver, but you would check the truck number, the trailer number, you check the DOT number, you can go online, check if they're legit or not, all in real time. You take a look
Hmm.
at the BOL information, you reconcile it against the YMS, TMS, CRM, whatever the carrier or whatever whatever shipper has that they want integrated with. So all of this kind of happens in real time. You can reconcile it against historical data, authorized lists, GPS coordinates, the routes, all sorts of things. And again, you do this in real time. You're reconciling between the digital records and what you're physically seeing. And if you get
Hmm.
suspicious, you can say, this fraud girl here, she seems pretty suspicious.
Yeah.
She looks like a fraudster. So, hey, Danielle, I'm going to ask you a question. I was talking to your dispatcher, and he said you were going to be here around 4, and his name's Steve. So Steve told me you'd be here around 4. You're here at noon. How come you're here early? And I would just make that up.
Right.
And if you're a fraudster, you might say, yeah, well, Steve, he makes mistakes, or sometimes they do that. So you can ask these trick questions to suck the driver into revealing more about their intentions. So
Yeah.
everything's got to check out. Oftentimes, people that do commit cargo theft, they're not really calm and cool about it. They're nervous
Right.
at the gate. They fumble. They make mistakes. They don't know how to answer your questions. That is, I think, an essential component to kind of closing the loop on fraud that's happening right now. And again, there's a 1,500% increase since just in the last 4 years, 5 years,
Right.
in the way the loads are stolen. So that's how we go about it, and it works really well.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times, unfortunately, shippers may have, cameras near their facility, but it's not really capturing all. Is probably not a good enough camera to capture details on the truck, which is super frustrating for like police whenever something does happen and you got to forward it over. So that's to me, even like a Ring camera has better camera images than some of these shippers have. So that type of thing, and then also like a lot of times they'll go back and say like, well, the dock workers don't want to walk out there, like they get paid this and they don't care and stuff like that. So it kind of just takes that responsibility away from maybe a dock worker or maybe that camera and kind of putting it on, hey, before they even enter, this needs to be pre-vetted. So I just think it's huge to have something like that. And with everything kind of syncing up, like you said, the real time, because the time is of the essence. And so what does some of your customers say as far as time frame and like if there's hangups or delays, if they've noticed a difference?
Well, there's a 75% reduction in throughput. So you can
Okay.
actually process trucks a lot quicker. And cameras are just one part of it, right?
Hmm.
Cameras just visually verify what they see. You use AI to collect a lot of information. But yeah, cameras are just one part of it. There's two-way voice communication. There's digital reconciliation of the physical world and the digital world. There's access control that's integrated. You're also taking a look at historical information on that carrier, on that driver. So cameras are just one part of the whole thing. So when people
Right.
say, "Oh, I have cameras," yeah, but cameras are just like one tiny slice of the pie, really, in this
Really.
holistic kind of layered approach to combating everything. Now, yes, you want to prevent fraud. Yes, you don't want to be ripped off and have to claim big losses, but you also want the faster throughput, to your point. You want
Hmm.
trucks going in and out a lot quicker, but safer, right? You want to make it easier for drivers, make it easier for the dock personnel to just go on about their business and not really worried about, hey, was the right person entered in? Is this pickup fraudulent or not? So it kind of helps everybody. And I think also when it comes to operations, the data that you get in terms of who's coming in, how frequently, how long they're in the yard for,
Mm,
what your total yard occupancy is like, how much spare capacity do you have in the yard at any given moment, which could potentially create some additional income if you rent those yards. Are people doing their pre-trips and post-trips? So cameras are just one tool that allows you to look at everything from a bird's eye view and document everything and collect big data they can use to make better informed business decisions in the boardroom. And you can have that consistency from one yard to the next. So whether you're a smaller shipper or a carrier with a smaller center, or you have many, dozens, hundreds maybe across the continent, you want to have a systematic process that can be executed with precision consistently across the
yeah.
board, and you can make tweaks and changes to it very quickly. So we call it here as the yard operating system. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more of that. And it's basically everything goes into a system, works real time, reduces your security costs, your IT costs, helps safety compliance, and just overall improves your operations while you're controlling costs, reducing risk.
I'm sure this will be a YOS then, yard operation system, because we always love the three letter
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's funny.
Yeah, so it's a relatively new area. I mean, we've been at it for 15 years. Um, well, I've been at it a little bit longer because of my previous history to that, but just
Mhm.
in trucking alone, we've been doing this for about 15 years. Everyone thought we were crazy. We'd go out to customers or prospects and say, "Hey, we're going to watch everything." They're like, "Whoa, whoa, I don't need you watching everything." And now it's kind of like, well, how much does it cost you to watch everything? And
Right.
how many people do you need to hire to do that? And
And
can
do
you
they
rely
actually
on
do
them?
it? Yeah, and do they
Do they
actually
do
do
it?
it?
And
Yeah.
what is the cost? And no offense to security guard industry, but who grows up saying, I want to be a security guard when I grow up? Which parent tells their kid, when you grow up, I want you to be a security guard, right? So
Yeah.
highest turnover and high cost. So you don't get a lot of ROI on that body in that guard shack. These people can be repurposed for other more value added tasks. And you can get a system like ours that reduces your cost, but gives you
Mhm.
10 times more value. And it also makes you a better company to work with. So if you're looking at better partners, better customers, better vendors, lower insurance rates, you come in and you're like, look at all this transparency. I have nothing to hide. Everything's in real time. And it's also good for the drivers as well because it makes them feel safer when they're inside yards.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, and even being able to keep track of who's coming in and out, like your detention time goes down, kind of all that stuff. You can kind of manage, like, hey, we're noticing a big spike. People, like, especially like those first come, first serve facilities. Sorry, we're seeing a big spike during this time. And so during this time, we're, kind of being able to keep track of that instead of just when you're in the moment and you're just like, oh my God, we're flooded. Seeing those patterns over and over again. Um, kind of help things. And I think it's a good point too that you brought up about the safety of other drivers coming in there. Like, hey, I know, this guy's not going to follow me, or I'm not going to have issues with this and this, and kind of everybody's being held accountable. And then one last thing I was going to bring up. So the non-domicile English proficiency, of course, that's like a big buzzword right now with the current administration. Is there? I'm assuming since you can even ask questions on the like two-way intercom, there it would be where you could technically ask those type of questions and keep yourself safe in that regard, and not get drilled by the government at some if they come down to that point. We'll see. But
And in any language and in any manner. And you can take an actual kind of list of best practices that is designed by the C-suite of any company and say, here's kind of the terms and conditions of every conversation that needs to happen at the gate. You can feed that into the model and AI will
mm,
follow your guidelines. And then humans are there to intervene. AI will fail. I know there's a whole lot of talk about AI. It's a great way to flag things and say, hey, you should look at this. My confidence level is X, and I'm going to escalate this to a human. So you need professionally trained people that are trained by even more professionally people that can kind of jump in and do that. So if you have those situations where you're dealing with a driver and you have to find a way to work with them, but also have some legally minded, considerations.
yeah.
So I think now is more than ever that you need help. Where are you going
Hmm.
to find staff that is going to be legally minded on time, willing to work in the middle of the night in a guard shack, putting their life in danger, and you want them to capture the information and reconcile everything. And like, good luck, right? This
Right.
day and age, it's hard enough to find just drivers. Never
Hmm.
mind someone that wants to sit in a guard shack in the middle of the night and do all of these things. So technology is awesome. And that's why I fell in love with it decades ago, because it is the only path to resolve modern day solutions. And you and I and the industry aren't the only ones that have AI. Fraudsters also have AI. So they have tools. They're getting more sophisticated. So you have no choice. You have to protect yourself. Again, going back to the gate, it's the front door to your house. You have to have a really good front door. You got to have a great lock. And if somebody's entering or exiting, you have the right to say, hey, welcome. And also, why are you here? I don't expect you. So
Hmm.
being able to deal with those situations that you've described earlier and doing them professionally and with consideration and respect and professionally, I think the only way to really combat that is with a more sophisticated solution.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I've kind of been talking about this on my show for a while now that I think as a industry, as far as cargo theft goes, we have done a lot and all the things that we can do on a carrier level. We're at the point now where I need to be vetting on a driver level. And honestly, it's like boots on the ground driver level. Even like the zip ties to their grill or like the placard up there with like a magnet, like even just those weird anomalies that maybe your guard shack guy doesn't know all these different trends, cargo theft trends, like being able to have a solution like yours where it's like, hey, I'm having a red flag pop up because you guys are in the know of new and updated cargo theft trends. So that you would know, like, hey, them having I don't know, the magnet on the side or whatever is something to kind of look for, right? And it's, hey, if from here we should investigate further prior to just kind of letting them in. Because a lot of times it's not just a clear yes and no. There's a lot of gray area in our industry, but honestly, getting to the point of like having, verification on the driver level, like I worked with the California Highway Patrol, and one thing that they were saying is like, as far as facial recognition with the driver or collecting their CDLs, maybe it's a fraudulent CDL or a fake CDL, but it would, if the face matches, that's kind of the biggest thing. They can kind of take it from there with facial recognition, but they need that face to match and verify that. And a lot of times people just aren't doing that.
It's a lot of work. It's hard to find
Hmm.
great people, as we all know. And I think it's a more, you have to look at it holistically. You made a lot of great references to even the way that the equipment looks like when it arrives at the gate. So
Yeah.
one nice thing about technology is that you can do so many tasks simultaneously in real time in a well integrated system. You can actually inspect the truck for the zip ties. You can inspect the truck for.
Oh wow. We had technical difficulties. Sorry, everybody. But one thing, and I'm sorry. Do you remember what you were just talking about? Or I have a question.
Sure, I'm happy to reiterate. You were talking about how some trucks have zip ties to, parts of their equipment, their fenders, or you have stickers, or you have damage to the equipment driving in, and drivers having fake driver's licenses, the pictures don't even match, and things like that.
Hmm.
And what I was saying is that the wonderful thing about technology is that you can actually do all of these checks simultaneously,
Right.
real time. So real time paperwork reconciliation, digital against physical BOL, real time driver identification and scrutinizing as well, real time
Mm.
equipment inspection, tires, damages to the equipment. You can make notifications of all of this, put into your CRM, flag things. It could be your taillight could be out. Maybe that's a reason not to let someone out, or cracked windshield, or all of these things. They're all done in real time, reconciliated in real time. And I don't think there's any human being, maybe there's some really, really, really capable people, but for the most part, very few people can reconcile all of these things simultaneously and have that truck pass in or out through that gate in an
Yeah.
efficient fashion. And so I'm a big proponent for technology, but I don't trust it fully. I love tech, but I don't trust it fully. I always think that there has to be redundancies, backup lines, and ultimately a human that is overseeing it in real time that knows how to step in and adhere to those protocols in the same
Yeah.
fashion. Maybe they won't do it as fast, but they have to be readily available at all times to do that. And I think that that's the modern way to operate a yard. And I think in a couple of years from now, it'll be rare to see security guards in guard shacks because that
Hmm.
ROI is just not there. and
Right.
1,500% increase in fraudulent pickups and theft in the last 4 or 5 years, that's going to just continue. And
Yeah.
those that are not defending themselves, they're going to be the victim today, tomorrow, tonight, this weekend. So they will have no choice. So it'll be extremely rare to see people wasting money on resources that those funds can be redeployed. Capital can be spent in different ways where you get 10 times more value.
Yeah, I think like I remember somebody from your team was telling me like your cameras can even like read the seal number from afar. Like it's crazy how great your cameras are, and even seeing a truck come up, from afar as well, I think is big because a lot of times they're inspecting things like as far as a guard person, like right when they're there, right, but missing some of the stuff maybe as they're driving in, maybe prior to them coming in, they're changing things and doing things right outside the gate. I've seen that before too, where they went back on their camera system and yep, right outside the gate, they were flopping a magnet on there. And instead of having, once it got to the guard shack, they were like, "Oh yeah, everything looks fine," because he didn't see that happening down the road, which is, wild having that happen. But no, I think it's a great point on not even just like the ROI on it, but just having that level of security. And I love that you brought up too, like because I think a lot of times for a shipper, it's difficult to get funds like this allocated because they'll say, oh, well, there's this and there's that. Well, there's a way to reallocate either personnel or have funds be available for that. I talk a lot about pallet trackers too, and how a lot of shippers don't want pallet trackers or can't afford or allocate money towards pallet trackers. But even like having something like this to me makes more sense because it's more of a physical security standpoint, and also for your personnel. I mean, that type of security is huge too, right? Like there could be, especially depending on the freight that you ship, if it is high value in any sort of way. I mean, crashing through a gate is one thing that they can easily do, and let alone go do something more destructive to personnel. And I mean, you never know how desperate these bad guys can get.
I've seen, unfortunately, videos of people being dragged under vehicles. I've seen
Wow.
people get run over. I've seen all sorts of stuff, unfortunately. And we perform about 1 million gate transactions a month,
Wow.
and so we see all kinds of stuff, have all kinds of conversations, and encounter all sorts of individuals. So the amount of things we've seen is really bad, and it's sorry, the amount of bad things that we've seen is too much. But I don't think it's going to go away. It's getting worse, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I was a driver or any personnel within a yard, I would want to know that whoever entered the yard has been vetted and they're
Right.
here for a good reason, and that I don't have to think about them speeding out of the yard and potentially running me over,
Yeah.
right? We've caught
Exactly.
people that are drunk, hammered out of their mind, arrive at the gate, and
Wow.
they're like at the ID box, like they're high, they're drunk. During
That's
COVID, we've
crazy.
seen like really sick people, so for example, we talked about cool things that tech can do. You can check somebody's temperature. So you
Oh,
see really high
what?
fever. Yeah. So you get really high fever. Or we use thermal cameras to check the brake pads, how hot they are.
Oh
Right.
my
So you'll,
God.
yeah. So there's just so much cool stuff. There's no way you
So
can do
cool.
that as a single person sitting in a guard shack as a guard. Like, forget about it. Right. It's not going to happen. So you can do
That's
all of
crazy.
these things simultaneously, and you can just add all these layers. And telematics is super important because you can tie into it. And then
Mhm.
you have to have that human. You can't automate it all. You
Right.
have to have a technology operator that knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
because things will fail. Sometimes fraudsters get really good. You got to have that last conversation with them, and you have to be able to have that conversation in their mother tongue, because
Yeah.
so many drivers, they just don't even speak English now, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think that trend's going to go away, right? It's a
Right.
lot easier for them to speak in their native tongue and be able to still do your job. So just the flexibility of having technology at your back is huge. And I think that some people that are maybe watching, they're thinking probably like, this is ridiculously expensive. I don't trust it. I always recommend to everybody to speak to someone who's implemented this. It's a big industry, but it's a small industry. You
It
compete
is. Yeah.
against each other, but you work together. You share best practices. We've gone to so many industry events. People can't wait to share. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't. So you can get great references. You can reach out to us. I'm always happy to share what's worked, what the best practices are. And when it comes to cost, honestly, technology is just going down in price so fast,
Mhm.
and it doesn't cost millions of dollars to implement these tools. it's gone down significantly, down to being less than a security guard cost. But again, you get 10 times more value. So,
Right.
and yeah, I just love tech. You can see I get so excited about it.
I do too.
And but there's no way of going back to where we were 10 years ago. Everyone's going to get
Yeah.
more sophisticated and you don't want to be left behind.
Yeah, totally. Well, and even like the Hope Trans was kind of one I always talk about, but the Hope Trans USPS shipment that killed whatever it was, 4 people or 5 people, even like when we were talking about safety, being able, like right now, they're trying to go back and sue USPS for this, even though they weren't the ones that booked the carrier. But they didn't have those protocols where they were checking things and kind of doing that pre-check stuff like you're talking about. And so having a technology that does it for you and recording it, so if something does happen down the road, you're like, hey, I did all at the time that they picked this up, they looked squeaky clean. I mean, think about how much that would save them as far as a lawsuit.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
so we started off doing pre-trip enforcements over a decade ago. So we would watch cameras and we would let people know, hey, you didn't do your pre-trip. I can't let you out of the yard. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Oh, I got to go. I'm in a rush. I'm really sorry. The protocol is you got to do your pre-trip. And I know what a proper pre-trip looks like. And I
Right.
can see you from that camera right there. And, there's a voice down speaker that reminds them, please complete it. Right? Really difficult to enforce this any other way. If you have a person walking around with a clipboard, you don't want to get into a fight with John. You know what he's like, or Biff, or
Right.
whatever. You don't want to also come down on him, but you can do this with technology. And you also have the records to protect you when things go wrong. So
Right.
now we're working on AI that automatically detects folks that didn't complete their pre-trip or
Oh, wow.
post-trip. So one thing is to take your iPad and just check, 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 check. I've done it all. But you have to verify the digital records against the physical world
Yeah.
because it's so much easier to just check mark everything and rip through it and say, yeah, I'm good. No, you have to go out. A proper pre-trip isn't going to be 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's going to be 20 or maybe 40 if you do it like a really thorough job. So this gives a lot of power and control to ownership, to C-suite, to senior management to create rules and actually make sure that they're followed through and executed with precision every time, by the
Every
way.
time. Yeah.
Yes.
I love this. I like it. But as soon as I heard about what you guys do, I'm like, oh my God, we got to bring on the show because it's just such a game changer, honestly. Like, just to even know this exists is crazy. Kind of changing the world out there. So, how can people reach you guys and get in touch and learn more and all that stuff?
Our company name is Birdseye Security Solutions. You can go online and check us out. My name is Mike. You can call me directly also. I'm totally okay with that. I don't mind sharing what we've learned and exchanging experiences. So I just want to leave everybody with a note that technology is your friend and it can really simplify your life, reduce your cost, and make you a more favorable partner to work with. Wishing everybody a fantastic weekend ahead. And thanks for having me on the show, Danielle. Appreciate you.
Yeah, so happy you guys came on once again. And I know we're just real fast to plug in, like on the My Care portal side, like we were working on even having it where like when they pull up, it scans their DOT and MC, like make sure it's actually an active authority and they have the right insurance. Like there's so much you can do, like you said, digitally and physically. Cluster theft, BOLs, like I mean, the list goes on with all the things that this can solve or at least mitigate the risk, right? Like if it does happen and people are getting more tricky, you on your side have like hey, I've done everything I can do on my end rather than just like, shoot, this happened to us and what do we do? What processes do we change now? This kind of just automates it. And like I said, keeps up with the trends that's happening because you guys are seeing it at a mass scale. So thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.